All right, you are now tuned in to the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Goose, Heck, and Steve. Film Fest Filmmaking Part 2. In this episode, we have special guest Steve Demba. We cover topics that range from filmmaking, cinematography, creative processes, film festivals, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Carol Burnett and Audrey Hepburn. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, Steve, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure being back here. I didn't know you guys would have me back after last time, so. And I promise you guys, after I completed that next film, I was coming right back, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I kept my word.
That's true. You did. You kept your word. So Steve and Morgan were here back. I think it was 2019.
Yeah, it's a couple years ago.
100. Episode 152. So do the math, right? We're now episode 307. So it's literally half of our lifespan here in the Rotated Views podcast. But anyway, so Steve, so obviously, folks, if you're listening, check out episode 152. It's still out there on all your major platforms. But for those of us who do not know who you are and what you do, let us know.
I am a fourth-year doctorate student. I am a filmmaker. And I'm just a creative at heart, and just trying to do my best to express that, and while also balancing all my other responsibilities as well. And it's a very unique, interesting time in my life right now. I feel like I'm in the middle of a lot of things. Like you said, last time I was here was 2019. So we're talking about a film that I wrote 3 years ago. Like it's new for a lot of people. The film, the release date, but for me, it's such an old topic. It's like as an artist, discussing something that is new to everybody else except you. While I'm already on
the next project.
Exactly,
right?
I'm already writing the next film, and now I have to like kind of take a step back and like kind of put myself back in that zone that I was in a couple years ago. It's interesting. That's where I am right now.
That's wild. Yeah. So I think we ended that episode with you talking about specifically this project, and I don't know if it was completed at that point or if it was almost there. But I do remember because I was looking at our show notes from the last time, and it was there. I'm like, holy smokes! He was definitely saying they had started it or whatever, and that he's going to come back on when it's completed. So here we are.
Did I say I was going to win a couple of awards and come back? Was that in the note? Because I was telling everybody, like, I'm going to win a couple of awards with the next one, then I'm going to come back with more credits, more credentials to my name.
I feel like that might have been said.
I feel like it was. A lot of it, like, it's
you manifested it all.
I mean, I also knew it. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a... It's a very interesting feeling. Like, you just know when you're onto something. That first one, from episode 152, I wasn't a fan of that. I didn't promote it anywhere. Like, my Instagram is like filled with like no good deed stuff right now. Because I am so much more proud of the work that me and my team, because I assure you, this is a very collaborative art scene when it comes to filmmaking, and No Good Deed itself is very collaborative. A lot of talented people helped me create this, so I felt obligated to them and myself to kind of promote this more than the last one.
Yeah, for sure. So talk a little bit about that, right? So we've had like music artists on, and they talk a lot about collaborations, right? And like how when they're in the studio, there's a totally different vibe when there's another creative person in there, and they feed off that energy. So when you're doing your projects, or you're brainstorming or your creative processes, and someone interjects with a piece of their creative thought, how does that, how do you guys intertwine that so it makes sense?
So, in my opinion, when it comes to filmmaking, I think in the art space, filmmaking might be probably the most collaborative, dependent art scene. Because it just requires, especially with my methods, like, it's not just a camera for me. It's music, it's this, it's this, it's this. Like, especially with my process. And one of my favorite characteristics about myself is which I actually realized about myself through filmmaking, is I'm really good at bringing talent on board. I feel like I have a good eye for talent.
Yeah.
And everybody that helped me with my first film, No Plow Stops for the Dead, if you see those credits, you're going to see the same credits for No Good Deed.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a growing process. I knew that No Plow Stops for the Dead was mandatory in order to create a film that is going to win and won 18 film festivals. Because if that project is not made and we go straight to No Good Deed, I know it wouldn't be as good as it is. So when it comes to collaborating, it comes with trust, understanding that people are talented and they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
I brought them on board for a reason. They understand my vision. I think it's very important to bring people that trust in your vision as well. They're not there just to, put a credit on their resume or collect a check. They're there because they genuinely believe in you and your vision, and they're there to help promote it and enhance it. So my collaborative process have been seamless because first is the exact same team from the first one.
Yeah.
I take pride in building those relationships and not one-off, all right, new cinematographer, new editor. Plus, I know how frustrating it is to work with me.
Yeah.
So I also need those people who are patient and are able to butt heads with me, because it's literally inevitable. Like, we will butt heads. You will hate me.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, like, that's the number one thing. When there is frustration, when there is butting heads, and it's also healthy.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I'm not saying that as if...
Not coming to blows.
Yeah. I always ended with, I promise you, the final piece will be worth it.
Yeah.
Like, we can go through this now, but at the end, we're going to look back on this, like, it'll be worth it. So it's a, when you have those right people, it's an awesome process.
So I saw at least one similar actor from the first film to the second.
Exactly. You see.
So I noticed him.
There was two.
Oh, there was two.
It was the waiter and the other guy.
Exactly.
At the table.
The bald guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've and I think it was you guys.
Van Barrett and Robert. Robert Schroefire. Those are the two actors that came back.
Nice. So when you're selecting the actors to basically portray your vision, because that's what they're doing, right? What does that process look like? Do you feel like when you're selecting them, they have to fit it exactly, or do you think you can get them to mold into?
So initially, with the first film, I'll go back to the first film because it's a good kind of, it illustrates the evolution of my creative process. With the first film, I just hired whoever I could get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, if you were open to working with me on this film, then come on in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're, the script was already obscure, the idea was already obscure. So if you're actually open-minded to this, it's already a good sign in terms of collaborating. And for the second one, I understood the roles that. I was able to build those relationships with two of the actors from the first one, and I brought them back, and I knew which roles they would fit perfectly for. The main actor role, that was the one where I didn't feel like I had that. Sometimes you don't know what you're looking for, but when you see it, that's when it hits you. So, interesting enough, Caleb Atius, he is the main actor for No Good Deed. The way I actually found Caleb was, I think I've told this story, I'm not sure. This is one of my favorite stories, just because it's such a coincidence-like kind of story.
Yeah.
Caleb and I were classmates in middle school, Woodrow Wilson Middle School, literally classmates. I haven't spoken to him or seen him since, prior to starting No Good Deed. And one day I was on the way to UPenn campus, and it was traffic hour and everything, and I see this guy walking past me. At the moment, I didn't even know it was Caleb.
Yeah.
But when I saw him, I knew it was like, wait, that's the character that I was writing about on No Good Deed. Like, that's him. I don't know who that was, but I'm like, that's who I was just writing about.
Wow.
Like, and when I was a creep. Like, I was staring at him. I legit put on the emergency lights. I was going to put on the emergency lights, fly to my car, and just, hey, have you acted before? Because I just wrote about you recently. So I was staring at him like a creep. And then my brain was like, hold up. You know this guy. And I'm like, wait, was that Caleb? So I go on Facebook. I search up Caleb. And I see the tattoos, I see the guy, I'm like, wait, that's Caleb, my classmate from middle school that I haven't spoken to since. I messaged him directly, immediately, like, hey, have you acted before? I just wrote a script and I feel like you're perfect. He was like, actually, I just took some acting classes.
What?
And I was like, listen, let me send you over this script and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
So I sent over the script to him, and he sends me back like, when do we start filming? This is crazy. I'm like, wow. Oh man, this is so awesome. And he made the script better. He asked me, do I know the name of the character? And I was like, I honestly didn't.
Yeah.
With my writing process, sometimes it's a strange writing process. I don't necessarily name my characters. Yeah. I kind of let my actresses
kind of define it, whatever.
They're going to mold into the character anyway.
Right.
So when you ask me how do I get them to mold, we both kind of discussed the vision that I have for the character.
Right.
He named the character River. He was like, can I name him? I was like, perfect. Like, do what you want with him. Like, he's yours. I feel
like there's buy-in, right? So now I feel like he has buy-in. So,
exactly.
Hold on, now I have a piece of this.
And it makes my life easier because I'm very visual. I can focus more on the cinematography, on the shots, on some of the other things. And when I know I can trust my actors to take that role and trust them enough where they could do what they want with it. And that's how the process began. He told me about some of his hobbies, and I incorporated some of his hobbies into the character.
Okay.
So how much do I want to discuss some of the scenes? This is an interesting. I don't know how much I want to reveal, but for example, the sculpt. I'll be vague. The sculpting scene,
mm-hmm.
Right? That was one of his hobbies.
Wow.
He created those. That was never originally in the script. So I also like to get to know the human themselves.
Yeah.
And kind of incorporate some of their uniqueness into the character and like blend it into like one, persona. So that was my collaborating process. And it meshed perfectly. It was just such a seamless process, and I was very lucky. Caleb nailed it.
Yeah.
He would ask me like, he would ask me how, because there were specific scenes where I would overly compliment him. You nailed that. And then there were some scenes where he would ask me, hey, you didn't tell me anything this time. And I'm like, listen, I promise you, I wouldn't let you do a bad job. Like, I got your back. You got my back and I got your back. So it was kind of that process. And
so do you allow them to do you want them to improv? Because I know improv takes it a little bit more into a different scene where they might have a whole different dialect than what you had out on it. Like,
yeah,
how far do you let them go on that? I'm
very open-minded when it comes to improv. I know other directors are like very strict when it comes to that. I don't. It's art, express yourself. You can improv all you want, but
doesn't mean it's gonna make it.
Exactly. 100%. I will cut it right there if I don't like it. Like, you can improv, but I will cut it if it's not going where I want it. And it's happened.
Absolutely.
It's happened. So of course I allow improv. Again, it's art. Express yourself. You're here for a reason. I've trust in you. You have trust in me. Let's.
Because you might come with something slightly better than what I had in mind.
100%, exactly. Because I already know the cinematography is going to be good.
Yeah.
The shot's going to be good. Now it's the intermediate stuff that's inside of that square in the film. And that, when I know the cinematography is good and everything else is good, the shot and everything, it allows for them to improv because everything else is good. And just for them to do what they do.
Yeah. So me and Gabe put together a motivational mixtape type of thing, and part of that process was selecting the right music.
Oh yeah.
So that is, for everyone out there who has not done any of this or has ever tinkered around, that is way harder than it was way harder for us. I should speak for myself. That was way harder than I thought it was going to be. Especially there's a wild range of music or instrumentals you can pick from, and you basically, the world is yours, but that can become overwhelming because it's almost like you have too many options.
Yeah.
So explain a little bit about that. How do you select what works for you?
For No Good Deed, so I'll go over two things when it comes to music for me. I take pride in my culture. My father is Albanian. My mom is Greek. I grew up in Greece. So I always, because I also understand that filmmaking is an art and I'm also expressing myself, I think it's important for me to bring those ties and kind of bring them out into my filmmaking.
Absolutely.
So that's why in that first scene, the music that's played is an original Greek song.
Yeah. By
a legendary Greek singer.
Nice.
So I took pride in making sure that I chose something like that. And I knew it makes so much sense. And it's also funny to me because I know the audience isn't going to understand the lyrics.
Yeah.
But the lyrics are so fitting with what's going on in the film. Like,
that's cool.
It's not just a random woman singing. Like, I promise you, the lyrics make sense.
Yeah.
Everything, I don't want to sound too, everything in my film makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, everything is there for a reason. Even when you think there's something going on, I promise, there's foreshadowing everywhere. That's why a lot of people, one of my favorite compliments is when somebody says they enjoyed it the second time. Because the second time is when you view more. Because my art will never be, and I will make sure that it will never be easy to consume.
Yeah.
I will throw at you a lot. I trust in my audience, and music has so much to do with that. I think music can carry a scene. It can bring this poetic vibe to it if it's done right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't want to sound like a critic, but I just see a lot of random things when it comes to music and the scene, and it leaves me confused. So that's how I approach music. I always want to tie back to my roots and express something, as well as something that makes sense with what I'm displaying on screen. And I also had a film composer for this film, No Good Deed.
That's cool.
Andy Rinaldi, super talented. I actually met him on Reddit. I was kind of promoting, I didn't promote No Plow Stops for the Dead anywhere because it wasn't good. But on Reddit, I still wanted to promote it on Reddit because I know that's an audience where I can get some useful feedback.
Yeah.
And Andy was one of the first people to reach out to me. And that's how we kind of began. It turned out he was based out of Philly.
Oh, wow.
He was like, I don't know what he saw in me because, again, the film is not that good. But he saw something, and he immediately was like, what are you working on next? I'm curious about what's next. Like, he was curious about the progression.
Yeah.
And I discussed the film with him and what it was. He read the script. And that's when we started forming a relationship. We discussed the tones I was going for. It was a very, very collaborative process when it came to the score. And I wanted a professional to do it.
Yeah.
Like I made sure No Good Deed was professionals worked on it. And he helped create the sound and vibe that I was going for. Like, you hear cellos, you hear dark overtones. We brought a musician from Canada to do some of the sound work, instruments, and it's just and that kind of puts into perspective how many people work on these things.
Yeah.
Somebody from Canada does the instruments.
Sure.
Somebody from Philly does this. You're doing
the credits. I felt like just kept going. I'm like, holy smokes! There's this many people involved.
I wanted to make sure everybody got their due credit.
So where was the growth in your mind? Because I made a point to go back to the first film, and I made a bad point in watching the second one first, and then going to the first one. I'm like, good Lord, there's a big ass difference. Because then it was like, then I felt bad. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I told you.
No, seriously, this is like seriously different. So the first one we saw, because we had you on here. So then I didn't notice the first link or whatever the heck he sent me, because it was a private link. It was like on Vimeo or something.
The second one, yeah.
so that's the first thing I saw. So I watched it. Then I went back. I'm like, let me check out the other one. And first of all, the second one's like 4 times longer too.
Well, yeah.
That was like the dramatic initial difference. But wow, from storyline to cinematography, just everything was like 10 times better. So what do you attribute the growth to in such a short period of time?
That comes with the expansion of thought, the expansion of just, I knew I could do more.
Yeah.
I knew that first one was kind of rushed. I wrote it in like 4 days. Me and I even worked with Olsen to co-write that one. And we quickly created that just so we can compete in the Penn Film Festival. We just wanted to submit something. And it was also a good practice for me, I saw it as. Literally in the middle of filming that film, like I was like, what am I doing? what am I doing? What am I doing? Like I'm not really enjoying this. I'm not really liking this. Like maybe let me just go back to school.
To your credit, he contemplated life.
Seriously, I was literally behind that camera. I wasn't just contemplating the shot. I was contemplating everything in that moment, and nobody had no idea. Like I tried to do my best to like contain all that doubt because people look to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted to keep my composure, and the show keeps going. So, and yeah, so with the expansion is, I knew I could do better.
Yeah.
I knew if I had more time, I could do better. I know the writing could do better, and it just came with confidence. Like, I really don't know how to explain it. And I know the next one is going to be exponentially better than this one. Like,
Yeah.
And I know it. Like.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound overconfident, but it's just something that I instinctively know.
Yeah.
And and then it's just my job to kind of manufacture it, create it, and not just say it's going to be better, but also, go about the process.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something to be said though too to create something in that for the first film in such a short time frame, that your creative processes it's not the same. They're kind of interrupted. They're not really flying around freely. It's kind of forced to some extent. And then you're just trying to get, when was I last creative? Maybe like last summer. Let me grab a cool idea I had from last summer, and you're just like jamming it into this whatever 4-minute film. And so it's hard.
Yeah.
And so, that definitely plays a role into it. So it's good to put that into perspective for the listeners too. Again, that also cue for you all to check back at 152 because they give more detail on what that process was and why they did what they did for the Penn Film Festival. So it was interesting, but this looked like it was like night and day. And congrats, because it is a heck of a job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well done. So let's talk a little bit about the tones of the film. It was and what does lighting do and play into that?
If you haven't realized, there's a theme when it comes to my filmmaking. I enjoy darkness. I enjoy a certain feeling. I enjoy a certain mood. And it becomes a collaborative process with my cinematographer.
Yeah.
I try my best to be as coherent as possible with what I want and implement that into the writing. Because when I'm writing, I'm not just writing words. I'm simultaneously creating the scene in my head. Like, I know what I'm going for. I know the look that I'm going for. I know the tone. And I know the relationship that I want the camera to have with the scenes itself. I try to treat my camera as it's not just a camera that's trying to capture what's going on in front of it. It has life. It has a role in my scenes.
Yeah.
And as whatever you think it is, I try my best to give it character.
Yeah.
And I mean, the subject matter, the tone, like, it starts off the way No Good Deed starts off. You already know. Like, I make sure you know instantly what you're in store for.
Right.
We start off with the quote. We go straight into a prolonged darkness, and then I immerse you into the sound. that's always, I feel like that's going to be a reoccurring theme with my future projects as well. I just love the idea of darkness, just sound, give the audience time to kind of let their curiosity increase, let their curiosity take over, and then show them something that I know they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And then we're off and running. And one thing that I constantly uttered during the filmmaking is like, I wanted to punch the audience in the face.
Yeah.
It was like, let's do that visually.
It's
let's
shock
do
value.
that. I wouldn't necessarily say a shock value. It's more unpredictability.
Yeah.
I'm not allowing you to know where we're going. Like, you think you have an idea, but I promise you don't. Like, I feel
Don't
like...
let them know your next move.
it's also like a game. Like, I had so much fun with it. Like,
Yeah.
I knew I was misleading the audience. I knew what I was doing with my writing. I knew what I was doing with the camera. And it's just so fun for me. And it's easy. That's also what motivates me to keep going, because I know that's natural for me. It's easy, and I'm good at it. And that's the thing that's always going to force me to keep going. And exactly, bringing that back with the tone and kind of the dark vibes. A lot of my favorite inspirations come from those kind of similar tones, and I recreate them in my own way. I try to be original, but trust me, there's so much inspiration into my filmmaking. I am a fan of so many directors, so many painters, philosophers. I mean, we start off with a quote from a psychologist. So, yeah, just bringing the
Carl
themes.
Jung, right?
Yes.
Carl Jung.
Bringing the themes together, bringing everything together. It's just, I know it's naturally going to be a dark kind of tone, and again, that is exacerbated with the colorist. It's like, so many people go into it, into helping make those tones come into fruition. So
would you ever link two projects, or are you to the nature of one project is one project? And I ask because this past weekend I watched a movie. I'm not going to say what movie it is, but it was an older movie. Brad Pitt was in it. It wasn't called Troy. Anyway, so at the end, it was kind of, you're watching this, I don't know, however you want to take this movie, and for the most part, it was pretty good. And then I felt like the way it ended was super cheesy, and it was like, I believe they were trying to lead into the next whatever project. With Achilles literally got hit with an arrow in his Achilles. I'm like, oh my gosh, who wrote this? This is awful, right? And so, but anyway, and then, you see the prince like stare out in the distance and like, oh, and they're going to the underworld. I get it. They're probably going to come up with something. Anyway, that was a very cheesy way of doing it. But I remember, I knew we were going to have you on. I went to ask you, I'm like, is that something you would consider, or is that you just kind of keep them separate, or maybe not right now? It's not something you're looking at?
The answer is no.
Yeah.
To the question, I get into specific zones, specific phases when I'm writing. I feel like I'm like sacrificing a small part of my sanity when I go into these phases, these creating processes, just because I know it's a piece of me as well. It's like I put a piece of me into the art that I know I will never get back. So when I'm done with said film or said project, I'm done with it. It already took that specific part. There's no other parts that I'm going to put into it. The world is done. I'm on to the next film. I probably know not my next 3 films. I never look for sequels, but if somebody, if it was like a mandatory thing where, hey, we want to see you prolong this and see what you can do if you created it into a longer film, and if you show us something even more, then we'll help fund your next project. Right. Only under those circumstances will I like force myself, and I don't even like that word, forcing myself to create. But if it means helping create the next project, because the next project, man. Listen, but if I know it helps to create that next project, then I'm all for it. But that's literally the only way. If I know it will benefit me into helping create my next project. Because once I create the next project, I'm confident I probably won't need to, you know, look for people. I feel like it'll be a much easier process of getting funds or whatever is required for the next film. Because the next one is the one I've been waiting for. But again, with No Good Deed, I'm done with No Good Deed. I already started writing the next one. So no, I'm not the kind of filmmaker that will create sequels or go back into a piece that I'm done with, because I already gave that piece away. I don't want it back. I'm not getting it back. So
So to that note, when you're thinking of your next project, or you're already going after it, what is your creative? Are you creating a whole storyline? Do you have storyboards? Do you have things tools to help you kind of guide you along the way? Do you write in patches or pieces?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right there. Stop right there.
Yeah.
I write in patches. I'm not the most chronological narrative writer or creator. I think of scenes that I know will make the final cut. But I don't necessarily know the order in that moment. But I know it's going to make it, because, man, I know if it looks good in my head, it's going to look good in front of a camera. So that's how I compartmentalize all those scenes, those writings, passages. So I do write in patches. For me, first step is always having the first scene.
Okay.
I feel like even though I do write in patches, the first step is knowing how to start the film. So I think that's a very powerful, because this is the first thing that your audience is going to see. This is the first thing that is going to captivate the audience. So I take super pride into putting extra effort into the beginning sequences and laying those out first, because if those first scenes are not good, then I scrap the project. If I know I can't start this idea in a captivating manner, but not in a cliche, like I know a very original scene or few scenes that will tell the audience, we're in store for something. I want to captivate the audience with those first scenes, and then once I have that, I start writing the middle scenes. I hope it's harder to write the final scene than the beginning scene, because again, it's easy to, in my opinion, in my process, it's easy to start something, and then once you fill in the gaps in the middle, it makes the ending kind of more, it clarifies what I want, how I want to end it. And then those patches, those missing scenes in betweens, that's when now I get into research mode. I can literally find inspiration from a poem. It doesn't have to be film for me. It can be a painting. It can be a poem. It can be anything. So I get into, I call it theft mode. But to be politically correct, we'll call it inspiration. That's when I'll start watching films, especially older films. I love watching older films because they convey a poetic style theme that I also enjoy and am good with. Like my films, even with No Good Deed, I feel like with today's cinema, it always frustrates me, because it's like everybody kind of directs the same way, same quick cuts, this, and I don't think filmmakers watch enough old cinema, in my opinion, and you can tell by this quick pace. I like treating my scenes kind of like quicksand. Like I like to wait. I like to be patient. I like for you to also be patient with
that
me.
slow build.
Let that slow build. Let's immerse, and that's why I enjoy sound and music so much, because that helps that immersion process. In the bathroom scene, that drip in the background. Not everybody's, but it's there. Even if you realize it, I know psychologically in the back of your head, even if you're not aware of it, it's there. Like you're hearing it drip. And that helps bring you into the scene. Like there's a lot of little quirky sounds that I didn't want to take off just to help bring you into the scenes. I don't even know what the question was. I just went on a little rant.
No, it's all good. But it's interesting because in speaking, when you do speaking engagements and you're taking training for public speaking, let's just say, one of the first things they say, you have the audience for 45 to 60 seconds. If you don't capture them within that small time frame. Now, film it might be different, but it's interesting.
No, it's the same.
If they're bored, then I'm like, what in the heck?
Yeah.
People don't have a good span to begin with.
Right.
I mean, technology, everything is quick to us. Quick. So again, that's why I also know the importance of starting fast, starting strong. Just so I try to get that trust from the audience to let them know, watch the entire thing. If you like these first few seconds, these first few minutes, continue watching. Like, now they have trust in me because they enjoy that first impression of the film. So now they're going to give me the benefit of the doubt. They'll stick with the entire process, the entire project, and that those first few seconds, first few minutes is crucial.
Yeah. I love it. All right. So, what about another thing I'm interested in is you got the music, you got the tones, you got the actors. What about the time period? Does that play into effect? So, I'm not saying that people are going to be wearing medieval like knight suits or anything, and I'm also not saying that they're going to be, it depends. It depends on what you're doing. How much does that play a role into what you're conveying?
I didn't have that option with a short film.
Yeah, okay.
With a short film, you're not necessarily... You can, but its time periods are expensive.
Yeah.
They're expensive. If you thought I needed help, I needed a lot of people to help with no good deed, you can only imagine what it's like with a time period. I knew I didn't have the sources for that. And plus, if I'm going to make a time period, which a little foreshadowing... my next film is a time period.
Okay.
But my next film is also my debut feature.
Got it.
So it allows me more flexibility for that immersion and to actually, now that I think about it, my next 3 films are all time periods.
It went on from no, we don't do that here. Oh yeah, you know what the next 3 are?
I just
Everything from here on out.
Yeah,
Forever.
Honestly, I kind of consider myself
So explain that though. Explain why that's so hard.
Well, first and foremost, I want to be like a time traveler. I want to go back into time periods and depict these worlds that we're not accustomed to. I'm not a big fan of modern films that kind of take place in modern times. I really do enjoy those time periods, showing me something that I'm not accustomed to seeing, which is film, kind of just giving the audience a new experience. And I feel like timepieces do that really well. And with short films, it takes a lot of funds because wardrobe, your setting, there are so many more things that are now take factor into the creating process. You need a lot more help now.
Yeah.
And those people, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
Wardrobe, especially, I'm a perfectionist. So if I'm gonna get you, you're going, I want the best. I don't want, just to say I created a time period just for the sake of it.
Heck, what was the movie with the not Tucker? Was it Tucker? The guy from Philly. He made his own car.
With one headlight that moved in the middle.
Yeah.
It was Tucker.
It was Tucker. Yeah. Okay, so there was a movie called Tucker. Anyway, so I believe it was based out of the 30s, 40s, whatever. Yeah, so anyway, so there's and it's Philly. It was shot in Philly and everything, right? So not in a way that I'm not paying attention to what's going on. I'm looking at all the background. So I'm like, what car is out of date? That car is not supposed to be there, right? And so I'm looking at the background. You know how expensive that got to be?
Exactly.
All these old classic cars got to be from that same era, just moving around. That can't be cheap.
And I'm so detail oriented that I will be the first to realize that before it even gets to you, before it even gets to the audience's eyes. That's not going to escape me.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of funds. Honestly, it's a matter of people. It's a matter of resources. That's honestly the easy answer. It just is what it is. That's why the next one, I need a much bigger budget.
Yeah.
For the next film, and that's why I did my best to show a future investor what I can do with. No Good Deal was a small budget project.
Yeah.
3,000 is not a lot.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
especially for all those credits, all those names that you
Yeah,
saw.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's not. And I'm so thankful for all of them because they believed in the vision. So they gave me a little break as well because those people, in my opinion, well, they know it too. They didn't get paid what they deserved, but they also knew that, and they were still willing. That's why I'm so grateful to continue to bring the same people, because it's so helpful for filmmakers that are just starting out to gain trust and that cohesive, consistent collaboration. So that way, when you do create award-winning films, that trust is now cemented. Now they're like, all right, now we can let's go. I mean, and with Morgan Hart, my cinematographer, and Sid Miller, my editor, one of the things that I did was they actually each won. Morgan won a Best Cinematographer award, and Sid won a Best Editing award.
Wow.
But, so they didn't know that. Because during the film festival process, when you're entering these contests, you're kind of like checking off what you want. So mine are going for a short film. I didn't care enough for best director or any individual. Like I'm not big on. I'm not seeking that validation. I feel like if my film can win, then that's all the validation I need. I don't need like a best. So I didn't compete in any best directing categories, but I did. Without their knowledge, I did submit Morgan for cinematography and Sid for editing, just to kind of show them that appreciation, and being naive, thinking and being confident that they were going to win. Because if they didn't win, I'm like, all right, do I do it next one? Am I chasing those awards for them? But luckily, they were both able to win, and I was able to present to them those certificates, and they can now say they're both award-winning editors, cinematographers, respectively. And
that's awesome. That is cool. All right, so before we get into questions with audience specific for our audience, is there anything you wanted to talk about with the current project, or any topics, any future project we should look out for? I just don't want to cut short anything you wanted to hit that we didn't.
Yeah, this is a very fitting place to announce my next one, because I haven't spoken to. I do have 2 interviews coming up, and part of their questions was, what is the next film? But I postponed them as much as I could. Yeah. So I could kind of
present it here.
World premiere.
Din, din, din.
Yeah. So I also wanted to do that. Right now, currently, I am writing my next debut feature. It's called Kanoon.
Okay.
It is I'm still working on the log line. I actually haven't read it in a while. I'm kind of just pitching it again. Hopefully I remember correctly. A 500-year-old ancient Albanian law obligates 2 families from opposing villages to kill off the males in ascending order in the name of revenge.
Huh.
Yeah, something like that. That's how it goes. So that's what I'm currently writing. I've already wrote the beginning. Right now, actually, I wanted to speak on this. I had this crazy realization a few months, maybe last month, where, again, for me, the writing process is always first writing those scenes, those images that are popping in my head. Because it's not a forceful process with me. They come to me in a way. It sounds strange, but sometimes it feels like ideas are just kind of coming from another place, and I'm just it takes me by surprise sometimes. I'm like, yes, let me write that down.
Said,
I'm like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I'm glad I thought of that.
Yeah, I'm glad, and I'll take full credit for it. And that process, I knew how I wanted to start it. And again, there's going to be a reoccurring theme with sound, you're going to see. And I started the research project because I'm because it is a timepiece.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Albania, 1960s to the 80s, somewhere like that. That's still to be determined.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm doing is trying to create that world.
Got it.
I don't necessarily do storyboards because it's just so easy for me to kind of like compartmentalize the visuals in my head. Like I do the storyboards internally.
Yeah.
And I know everybody has a different process, but for me it's just easy to just store them. I tried once, but I just found it so inefficient because I'm like, okay, I can stop this because I'm literally, the storyboard is already something that's already in my head. So I don't need this. Like I know how it's going to be shot. So with this one, again, because it is my first time writing a timepiece, I got my cousin involved, Igly, who's I've been collaborating. I mean, I love collaborating with Igly. That's my cousin.
Yeah.
I've been doing it since we were 7.
Yeah.
Regardless of what it is, whether it's a poster that didn't even come out, it can be him and I just love just to be in the same room and just come up with ideas.
Yeah.
And he got his master's in architect.
Okay, nice.
So I'm like, who's better than to help me build the architect world with Kanoon? Because I want to film it in Albania. Like I'm not going to desert, to Arizona, to like a film friendly time period piece where they can recreate it. I want to be authentic as possible with my process. I think again, it's very important for me to be authentic, and because that authenticity, whether you realize it or not, like it does, because for me it doesn't matter if you think, oh, maybe it was shot in the U.S.
Sure.
Just I know it creates this atmosphere, this mystique that authenticity can sometimes exude in front of a camera. So he helped me with the architect. He helped me visualize how the world's going to look, how the architecture, the buildings, because this is an entirely different world.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so draining for me to like. These are such draining processes. When I say like I'm sacrificing like a piece of my sanity, I feel like No Plow Stops for the Dead took like 2% maybe. Yeah. Maybe I sacrificed like 2% out of 100.
Yeah. No Good Deed was probably like 7%. Yeah. Kanoon is looking like maybe 19%. It's draining. But he is helping me with the architect. I have, that's where the music came from. I began listening to cultural, authentic sounds from that time, and it's very instrumental. It's bagpipes. It's very. It has so much color. I fall in love with those kind of things because that's art, invoking emotion. And again, I found how I wanted to start the film with this in terms of sound, because I always try to. That's first for me. Sound is so important for me. Like I want to emphasize that sound, music is just as important as the camera for me. They have such a symbiotic relationship, and I try my best to be as authentic as possible. And when I started getting an idea of how I wanted the film to start, I was able to start watching films from that time period too now, because that's part of my creative process as well. Like I want to see what the minds in that time period were thinking. So I started watching films, Albanian films, from the 70s and 80s, and the way they started the film with the sound that they were invoking, with the images. I don't want to reveal too much, but the scenery, the sounds that they were creating, I was literally something that I wrote. And I came to this crazy realization that these minds, even from the 70s, like I have so much respect for directors. Think about Albanian directors in the 70s. That's not a thing that, I can only imagine the hard work that it took, because funding, art wasn't a big emphasis in Albanian culture in the 70s. So I have so much respect for those people that went out of their way, because it's hard. It is so difficult to create, just period. I'm not even talking about film anymore, just to create. And the fact that they were able, I had the same idea, the same tone as they did from the 70s. I just had like this deep
realization when it comes to art and when it comes to like these thoughts, that there's sometimes just kind of just traveling with time, and it's like, oh, now maybe that's where how I stated earlier that they came from another place.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe these are ideas and thoughts and creativity that kind of just finds the next person who has
out of the ether.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh wait, he's capable. Let's go into
let's go live.
Yeah, literally, like it's strange, but it's also, I mean, when you're talking about things like this, kind of you have to get into these
metaphysical.
Exactly. Like it becomes strange for some people, but I promise you, some people understand because it is so difficult to describe it and accurately have somebody understand what I'm talking about. But there are certain people that I know know exactly what I mean, and it was just such an eye opener when I started watching those films, and it was like, man, so I know I'm starting the right way. I know I'm in the right path.
So I think another thing that when you said with the location where it's not this artificial thing that you're building and it's actually you're on site, so to speak, I think it allows you to continue, or the actors to continue that authenticity. It kind of streamlines it instead of this, oh my God, I gotta pretend I'm in Albania.
Yeah.
I know damn well I'm in Arizona right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I think you don't even have to say much. They're going to feel it from the actual atmosphere, and they themselves are going to be better at what they're going to try to portray.
100%. The atmosphere, the location, the setting is just as much of a collaborator as an actual, human being. It's because it's there to kind of invoke something that you're trying to display, which, is kind of like that's why I consider it a collaborator. That's why setting is so important for me, especially with what I want to do with the next film. And exactly, like, it's going to help with my vision.
Yeah.
It's a different world. It's different air. It's different everything.
Everything.
And that's where and that requires even more
food, smells, everything. As soon as you go there, it's not Philly anymore. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. It's like the inspiration's totally different. Then you feel like that ancestral bond too that's going to be pulling you. It's
well said. It's part of that immersion process. I don't just try to get my audience to immerse into the film, into the scene. It's also getting my collaborators, my actors, everybody that's helping with said film, immerse them as well. And what's a better way than to actually put them in the location where the period piece is taking place?
Yeah, I love it. All right, so you mentioned when we first started, you mentioned you have a lot going on. It's an interesting time in your life. There's many moving parts, let's just say. My question that we ask all of our guests is, what works for you? How do you manage it all with, obviously keeping your sanity, so to speak?
So everybody, I get that question. It's like, man, you're doing rotations, you're writing, you're doing this. Like, where do you find the time? And I know the answer sucks, but I don't know. It's just something that
that was inspirational, folks.
I just do. Like, I don't know, man. I wish I had a better answer. I truly do, but it happens. It just does, and that's where the help of others is involved.
I feel like you know what you want, and you're just going after it little by little. Whether that's and you mentioned through your film process, you have patience. There's a creative process. You're slow with it, and you're not forcing anything. So, literally through your film process, you basically described your personality. You know what?
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I never thought about it like that. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I agree.
I'm glad we're having this session.
Well said. Yeah. Who knew this would be a little therapy session? I didn't know I needed it.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
All right. So one more question. For all of your experience, you combine it with filmmaking. If someone's just getting started, maybe it's like a little high school kid who could be listening to this right now, or maybe it's just someone who they're beyond out of school and has nothing to do with age, and they're just thinking, you know what, I want to start my own little project just to see where it goes. What maybe tips you have for them to, if they're going to get started? What is it? Equipment? Is it research? Is it, you know, how should they start?
Well, it begins. Will they like go crazy if they don't create it?
Yeah.
Like, that's an important question. Like,
yeah.
Will you like go mad if you don't create that piece that's been in your head for a while?
Yeah.
So it starts there. If you're content with it just being stored there, then, because this is so hard. It takes so many moving pieces.
Yeah.
Like, creating a film is borderline a miracle because so many things have to go right.
Yeah.
In so many different instances. Like, and it's like, percentage-wise, it's just difficult. With me, it starts with, ask yourself first, would you go mad if you don't create it? Do you feel like it's good? Because you are the audience initially. You're kind of the first person that's viewing the film in your head.
That's cool. Yeah.
As you're creating it. Are you confident in it? Because confidence has so much to do with it. But not just naiveness. Being true with your creative process.
Yeah.
I knew No Plus Tops for the Dead wasn't good.
Yeah.
I knew it, and I was okay with it.
Yeah.
And No Good Deed won 18 film festivals, and I also knew it was going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's being true to yourself, and once you start answering those questions, and then you can get to the networking, because the networking in filmmaking is just as important as anything. It's, can you find resources? Can you find people that believe in your vision to help you now create it? Because it is such a collaboration. And don't be naive. Don't go straight for the 120-minute film. You know,
Yeah.
like, take your time, create something, because the first one is usually going to be bad.
Yeah.
So let something that wasn't good to begin with, let that be bad. Learn what you're going to learn. Do you have a theme? Do you have inspiration? Do you have favorite artists? Do you know what kind of world you want to create? Do you have a little niche? Are you just making another film? Is your film starting with a clock alarm going off and your character waking up? Because then you should probably stop right there. Do you have those ideas that, do you watch films and do you recreate certain scenes with the idea where, oh, this could have been better if this happened? Like, do you have that ability? Because you're going to need it, because
that critical eye.
Yeah, because if I'm talking to somebody and they're in the process of creating, and for them to know that, because I'm in the process of creating, and I'm going to be such a force, so you better be confident with your work, because I'm here too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So bring that kind of the same aggression, because I know I'm bringing it, and I know I'm extremely confident with what's coming.
And maybe a good one to that point, open to suggestions or open to that communication.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I listen to a lot of comedians, not just in stand-up or whatever they do, but just going through their creative process. I always try to find somebody outside of my profession just to get a different, insight on, or just perspective on life, whatever. But there was this comedian, he was talking about coming off stage. He's like, I did okay. It wasn't like I didn't bomb, but I didn't crush it. I just did okay, and it was like, you know what? I was just kind of running through my material for the first time. Anyway, so he sat in the back where the rest of the comedians were, who were ready to, waiting for their turn. And he's like, he sat there, and they all just like, yo, you know what you can do? And they're all just breaking down his entire, 20-minute set. Yeah. Helping him to improve. If you did this, if you did that. He was blown away how many people, for one, that were willing to help him, two, that had so much different spins on what he was going to create, that it exploded his creativity for the next round. He's like, a lot of them I didn't necessarily take for it, right? But I used them on my next pieces or my next project. So it's very interesting. You definitely got to be open, because you can be in art, you're very vulnerable. I'm really glad you brought that word, vulnerability. Yeah. Vulnerability is
like I enter that state when I'm creating. I become super vulnerable. I become emotional, and it seeps into the real world. Like my creative process is, you've heard of method acting, correct? Which is kind of like the actor getting into regardless of what techniques they have. I've never heard of like method writing or method directing. I've never heard of that, and I became very fascinated because my favorite actors, and honestly the best actors, they all implement this method acting. So I started implementing that when I was writing No Good Deed. I started implementing that when I was writing Kanoon. I'm still writing Kanoon. And when it comes to that method writing, directing, and kind of like getting in a certain mindset, it can seep into the real world, and because it just makes you more vulnerable. Like it's so difficult to turn that on and off.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a project that I wrote 3 years ago. Yeah. It's been in the film festival circuit for a few months, but when I was writing that, I was super, I don't know what the right word is, but actually vulnerable. Yeah. I was super vulnerable, emotional. Like I could tell there was something off, and I feel like that's just associated with my creative process. And I'm also willing to accept that, because as long as it means creating the highest possible art quality, then I'm more than willing to kind of sacrifice part of that sanity to create that project that I know I want to create. And when I took a break, because I am coming off a little break, I stopped writing for a little bit, for a few months. No Good Deed was already done. I was just garnering accolades in the film festival circuit, and I could just notice, like, I just felt different. Yeah. There was just more to me now. It was like, oh, this feels so cool. Like, I don't have to worry about writing. I don't have to worry about creating these scenes, because they can literally
take over your world.
They can literally take you over sometimes because you're so invested in it. And that's what I meant when I said it's a very interesting time in my life, because I'm kind of now starting to transition back into creative process. Yeah. After taking time off and like kind of just enjoying life and not writing and not doing this, because it's important to take breaks as well. So again, now I'm back into the creating process. I feel the switch a little bit. You know when I started feeling it? Today is Tuesday?
Yes.
Yesterday morning. Yeah. I woke up and I just felt a little bit different than there was kind of, it was back. It felt like that creature was back. Yeah. That's like helping me create. And it's like, it's a heavy creature, you know, it's like it's just there, but that's kind of that, and that's where the vulnerability comes from. And again, I'm more than willing to do that for the sake of my creating process, because I know that's what it takes, and I know what I'm trying to achieve. I'm genuinely, I try to be careful with coming off as too overconfident. I'm genuine, like I genuinely feel like I can bring something back when it comes to cinema. Yeah. Because just what I watched today, it's good. I mean, of course, like I'm not taking anything away, but there's, in my opinion, something missing. Yeah. Just something missing, and I feel like I can step right in and show people what is missing. I try to do that with No Good Deed. Intentionally, I let the image take over the story, the narration. I didn't overwrite it. There's not too much dialogue. One of the most difficult things with filmmaking is not relying on dialogue. Can you tell a story, a narration, an image, a cohesive project through images, through camera work? That's a difficult part. Yeah. Because dialogue can, for example, like a narrator, sometimes people consider that like a lazy technique, because you're overtelling the audience, like you're not showing them, you're relying on this voice to like tell them.
Just exposition.
It's But it can be done correctly. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it's just so difficult, and seldom do I see it done correctly. But it can.
Somebody never saw Sandlot.
Sandlot was awesome. Sandlot was awesome, and that, again, I wanted to do that with No Good Deed because I knew this was probably. I don't know if I'm creating another short film.
Yeah.
I'm so ready to create my full length because I know that the story's there, and it's just for me to write it. So there were notes that I wrote, and like a checklist that I wanted to do with No Good Deed. Tell the story through images. Show potential investors, potential people who might. This is a journey. This is going to be a journey for me. Like No Plow Stops for the Dead was first. No Good Deed is second. Canoon is third. Is fourth. Is fifth. So it's like, and people come with you on this journey early on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure I established what my films will invoke. However you feel about No Good Deed, I know some people are not going to like it, and I know that, and I'm more than fine with that. But I also know some people are going to love it.
Yeah.
And I know both people that didn't like it and that did enjoy it. I assure you one thing: it invoked feelings in both groups, and I think that is so important with just art in general. Just can you invoke something? Can you make the audience feel something?
Sure.
Regardless if they like it or I don't care if you like it or not.
Yeah.
But did you feel something?
Right.
And that's good enough for me because it's just that right there is just as difficult as anything there is. Making another human being feel something through your art, through your lens, through your camera. And yeah, how did you feel watching No Good Deed? Let me ask you a question.
So immediately it was
without giving away too much.
So immediately you got me. Well, you already said the beginning. So immediately it's like you almost forced my focus, and so I gravitated towards like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And to that point, I started questioning a lot of things. It was like, where's he going with this?
Yeah.
And then a scene you already mentioned with the artwork of River, something that you said the real person already did. That scene was like powerful for me.
With the Greek sound, the Greek music in the background, like I tried.
And those specific statues with
I fused a lot for that scene
and color. So there's dark tones throughout the whole time, and all of a sudden you're blasted with this bright red, and it was like, I was almost like nauseating, like I almost got nauseous. It was a weird thing.
And I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Even the sound that accompanies. See, it's a relationship. What you're seeing and what you're hearing, they both go hand in hand. The redness is not just redness.
Yeah.
There's a little, there's screeching in the background.
Yes.
There's something in the background that's also helping the image invoke a further enhanced feeling. And but sometimes it can overwhelm the audience. So I try to be very, very calculated with how I wanted to do it. And one of my other techniques was the relationship with the camera and the actor. Like I kind of wanted to make it, one of my themes was with that camera work, I wanted to make it feel like it was kind of forced to be there.
Yeah.
Like I do very specific things, like there's no close-ups. You don't necessarily look into the character's eyes. You follow, if you realize, like we're following him a lot from the back.
Yes.
We're spying, we're hiding.
Yeah. It is a more voyeuristic kind of like.
Exactly. Like there's something going on with the camera work as well that I wanted to strongly implement, and I feel very confident that it did just that.
You definitely invoke emotion, I will say that. And one other scene, I will say, without spilling the beans, I'm going to tell everyone, you got to check it out.
No, I enjoy it. Whatever scene you want to talk about, like this is very...
No, it was very... Because it was... I felt sort of in the... not in the dark, but just kind of like in a shadow realm almost.
That's awesome.
Majority of the time.
You're bringing me back to the film now. Now you got me started. So
Yes.
prolong this. Now you brought me back to a film that I created 3 years ago, but now you got me going as if I just created it yesterday. So
yeah, and so the other scene that is just popping out at me, which it invoked. And I know why, because I'm a religious person, extreme comfort is when the priest was praying with him, right? And all of a sudden I was just like, oh crap, everything started to make sense again, right? And it was weird because his life can do this to you where you're just like, it's so chaotic, or you feel lost and all this other, and all of a sudden it just gathers, it's summed up. But I'm also a religious person, or not a religious person, I should say, a person with deep beliefs.
I sprinkled in some religious things.
Yeah.
There were some things going on.
So that felt, it was like, it almost, I forgot what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then that just almost like brought me back to reality. And then obviously he says something within that prayer that is the title of the,
I wrote that prayer.
Yeah.
I
like that.
A lot of people are like, man, where did you what quote is that? I'm like, no, I wrote that.
Yeah.
And
it was funny because then if you realize what the title of the film is, and you're like, huh? And there's so many things that is just like in the middle of, you're like, comfort. Did you just say no good deed?
Yeah. Again, that was one of my things. I have 14 minutes to sprinkle in foreshadowing, to sprinkle in.
It's a lot.
Yeah, like there's
a lot you did with that short period of time.
Yeah, and exactly.
That was cool. But so how can people watch it?
It's ready for public consumption. It's ready.
So it's been out doing what in the last 2 months?
What you saw, the Vimeo link that you saw, that was an exclusive link for film festivals. Strictly.
Okay.
I wasn't going to release it without, because I knew it was going to win awards, and there's a difference. Official selections, nominees, semi-finalists, those are all different than awards. I want to make that clear because it is a lot more difficult to get an award versus an official selection.
Right.
Because a lot of the films that you'll watch, they'll start off with their laurels and their accolades. You'll see official selection, which, listen, I'm not trying to, which is all, because it's just so difficult.
Yeah.
Because you're competing against so many other creatives.
Yeah.
But I want people to make sure
that distinction.
The distinction. It's an award winning. It's not an official selection. I didn't even include the official selection laurels into the film. And again, that's why I wanted it to go through the film festival process first, because I wanted to gain those accolades, those laurels, which is kind of like those ribbons where it shows the name of the film festival and kind of like its status and how it performed within film festival. And I wanted, after Demba Films presents, the next thing that you see is the laurels now. Got it. The version that you guys watched did not have the laurels because it wasn't award-winning yet. Sure. And again, I'm going to keep saying this, but I knew it was going to win. Sure. So that's why I delayed the YouTube public, because I have my own YouTube page, Demba Films. Yeah. And I knew it was going to go on there, but I didn't want to do it simultaneously with the film fest while it was competing in film festivals, because I wanted to collect those award-winning laurels and have them for display in the beginning of the film. That's cool. Just to kind of give the audience a reassurance that what you're about to watch is... Yeah, absolutely. No, you're about to watch something. You're in the store. In fact, I'm flexing right now. Yeah. I had to remove 3 award-winning laurels because the symmetrical aesthetic did not make sense, because it won 3 columns of 6 award-winning laurels. Was not it kind of felt convoluted, kind of felt so 555 felt so much cleaner, so I had to remove 3 film festival laurels
that he puts at the end just to smack you in the face. No, I'm kidding.
And
don't forget about these.
To be continued.
To go on a little mini rant on film festival, since I'm talking about these laurels, although I am certainly grateful for the accomplishments and the success that my film had in these film festivals, it wasn't the most, I don't know how to say this. I felt initially like they were going to do more to promote it, to kind of like, I felt like it was like this whole relevance when it came to film festivals, but through this process, it also felt like a little a cash grabber from like young filmmakers.
Yeah.
Like I did my research. I watched plenty of interviews. I didn't actually realize the negative perceptions between filmmakers and film festivals. It's almost like it was irrelevant. Sure. But for me specifically, it was very important. Like, and again, that's why I didn't submit No Plow Stops for the Dead to film festivals, because I knew it wasn't going to win.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to waste my time. And I think for filmmakers as well, it's important to don't waste your time, don't waste that money with film festivals if you know you're not going to compete. And for me, it made sense for me because, again, I knew it was going to win, and I really wanted those laurels to start the film off, just so I can give the audience a reassurance that you're going to watch something that is good. I mean, it's won some of the most prestigious film festivals. Top Shorts is literally the #1 online film festival, and it won best drama, I believe, and I also knew the film is going to invoke something, and I wanted them to realize that, oh well, if it won awards, then maybe I'll give it the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So that I wanted to do that, but like I'll go on these film festivals Instagram pages, and they're not, I don't think filmmakers, if I could give another tip to whoever's listening, I don't think filmmakers take full advantage of, if they were to win film festivals, I don't think they take full advantage of the marketing that comes with it. Like, this is my first time kind of promoting and marketing anything.
Yeah.
So, and I would go to these film festival pages, and I would see, like, I would go to their story, and the most they would kind of do is repost, you know, a certificate from the filmmaker, but the filmmaker wasn't promoting anything.
Yeah. And
that's another reason why I kind of shied away from promoting my film festival circuits certificates, because I didn't have that link yet.
Okay.
If I'm going to promote your film festival and the award, the accolade that I garnered from your film festival, and I know you're going to repost it to your audience, I want to make sure there's a link to my film as well. So it's not just, oh yeah, look at this.
It's a one-way.
Yeah, look at this young filmmaker just promoting their win at our film festival. Because essentially that's also the audience that I want to watch No Good Deed.
Right.
People that follow these film festivals, like that's my audience. Those are like the artsy, niche kind of audience that I'm looking for. Because my audience is what my follow. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's cool to practice promoting in front of them, but I really want to target those film festival audiences, and having these awards, that's another way that I feel like I can bring attention to my film. And I don't care about the numbers, I don't care about the views, because for me, if it doesn't help create my next film, then it means nothing to me. Like, it's cool, but I need to create the next one. Like, that's my main. When I'm done with the film, I'm already on. My next mission is help enhance, promote my creative process for the next film, because that's kind of how I want to operate.
All said. I love it. All right, so there you go. So if people did want to follow you, do you have any Instagram handles or anything they should check you out? They want, follow you personally?
Yeah, they could follow me on Steve Demba, DEMBA, no underscores, just that, if they want to follow me. I will be releasing No Good Deed Thursday, 8 p.m. It will go on my YouTube channel, Demba Films, and that's where it will come out. No Good Deed, Demba Films.
All right, so there you have it, folks. We like to wrap things up with quotes, and the first one is by Carol Burnett. When you have a dream, you have to grab it and never let it go. And the second one by Audrey Hepburn. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible. Film Fest Filmmaking Part 2. In this episode, we have special guest Steve Demba. We cover topics that range from filmmaking, cinematography, creative processes, film festivals, and much more. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Carol Burnett and Audrey Hepburn. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.